Hey guys, it's Adam from Premium Poker Tools, and today I'd like to go over this section right here, kind of how I'm outlining with my mouse. Um, so we can kind of call this the hand matrix, or let's say a hand selector. And I want to point out that I'm not talking about the specific one in the equity calculator. Like if you go to the hit calculator, you see the same thing. If you go to one of the guided analyses, you see the same thing. So you see this kind of repeatedly throughout the app, and it works the same way in all parts of the app. So I'm just talking about the hand matrix. So what is this right here? Um, a lot of you guys who are more experienced with poker might recognize it, but I just want to go over it for the people who don't. So when you see, let's say, like ATS, that stands for Ace 10 suited. If you see like 9-9, that stands for 9-9, like pocket nines. If you see like K7-0, that means King 7 offsuit. So all of the green ones are suited hands, all of the gray ones are pocket pairs, and all of the red ones are offsuit hands. And you can see there's kind of an ordering to this. So, ace king suited here, we have ace queen, ace jack. So it kind of goes in a descending order this way for the suited hands, and it goes in a descending order this way for the offsuit hands. So as you become more familiar with this, you'll kind of have a sense like, this is all of the Broadway hands, like the big cards. And down here we have some of the smaller cards. Up here we have like, you know, an ace or a king, but like with a low kicker. So you'll get kind of more familiar with the different sections, or kind of correspond to different types of hands. Like you'll see that the stuff over here are like connected hands. So yeah, there's like an ordering to this. Okay. So what we want to do here is we don't want to just look at this, we want to use it to select hands. So the most simple way to select hands is to just click on them. Um, I want to point out that you can click and drag to kind of make it quicker. You can click the clear button. Um, so yeah, you can definitely select hands by clicking each square that you want to include. But I have a lot of like shortcuts. So one of the shortcuts is these saved ranges. So when you open the app, these are kind of the default saved ranges that kind of come with the app. So like we have an opening range from the button. So we click here and it kind of pre-selects all of these hands. Or we have an opening range from early position in the blinds or from the cutoff. So instead of going through and clicking each of the hands, you can kind of use this as a starting point. And then, if you think your opponent is a little bit like they love their aces, so you can add these hands in. They like their suited kings, so you can add these hands in. Maybe they don't like suited connectors, so you like remove some of this stuff. So you can use these as a starting point, and then you can adjust it from there. So, and also if you want to customize them, you click here, and you can customize them. And if you need help with that, click this help section. Okay. So that's the saved ranges. There are also these tiers. So you can click this, it'll add the tier 1 hands. Click this, it'll add the tier 2. Click this, it'll add the tier 7 hands. So that's pretty straightforward. One thing I want to point out is that, like, you can see that this is checked right now because all of the tier 1 hands are selected. But, like, if we remove pocket queens, you'll see that it's a dash now. And that's indicating that, like, tier 1 isn't empty, but it's also not full. It's, like, somewhere in between. Like, it's partly selected. So we add the queens, you see the check mark, that means it's fully selected. And if we remove everything, now it's just empty. So that's kind of what the symbols in the checkbox mean. So let's move on to the categories. So we have like we click here, it adds the middle pocket pairs. We click here, it adds the small suited connectors. So pretty straightforward. The one thing that's not maybe straightforward is that when you click this, like it doesn't add all of the suited aces. It's just adding the medium and the small suited aces. And yeah, I guess I didn't maybe communicate that as clearly as possible, but that's what this is doing. It's selecting the medium and the small ones. And the same thing for this. It's like the medium and the small suited one gappers. Okay. So another kind of shortcut that you can use, which is probably the most convenient, is this slider right here. So a lot of times you're gonna say like, I think my opponent is opening, I don't know, 30% of hands. So what you can do, you click and drag, and it's gonna add the top 30% of hands. If you think it's 25, you slide it to 25. And the order with which it adds the hands, it depends on the hand rankings that you have in the settings. So you can see that there's all these options for how to rank hands, and you can click these links. It'll tell you the order that each of these corresponds to. You can also click custom, and you can type in like ace, ace, king, king, queen, queen, whatever. So you can enter in your own ordering if you want, and the help section will describe that in more detail. But for now, we're just going to keep the default. Okay, so something else I want to mention about this slider is that there's this, which removes like the top portion of the range. So like, let's say you think your opponent is like, let's say they flat call you. So you want to add up to, let's say, 30%, but you want to remove the top 3% of hands because you think that they're 3-betting this stuff. So like the fact that they flat called you, you don't actually think that they have aces in their range because they would have 3-bet aces. And you don't think they have kings. So you remove the top portion of their range. So that's what this leftmost selector does. Okay, so I want to mention something that I did a little bit unconventionally with the slider. So in other apps, the intervals between each of the numbers is going to be the same. So like here you can see from 30 to 35, it's a very small like width, but from 0 to 5, it's a lot bigger. And the reason I did that is because you need a lot more fine-grained control over this area than you do like over this area. Because most ranges are going to be somewhere around here. Like, if, let's say we go back to that example, they flat call us. So they have they have up to 30% over here, and then we want to remove the top like 3% of hands. So there's kind of a big difference between 3% and 6% and 1%. Like we really want to be precise that we're removing the top 3% hands. But, let's say that we think that they're really loose and they're calling up to like 45. Like now it doesn't really matter if it's 40 or 45. So we don't need quite as much fine-grained control over this area than we do over this area. So that's kind of why I designed it like that. And if you don't like that design, you can go to settings, included selectors, and double slider, and you can save it and see that this is kind of the more traditional design for the slider. So now the intervals between each number is all the same. So if you want to add the top 30% and then remove the top 3%, you can still do that, but it's a little bit more tricky. You can see that it's just more finicky. You don't have as much of a precise control over this area. So I prefer I call it the log slider, so I'm going to save that and use that. Okay, so we talked about selecting hands. You can click and drag. You can use all of this as shortcuts. We talked about tiers, categories, this right here. Now let's talk about the text input. So what you can do is you can type in something like sixes plus, let's just say like ace 9 suited plus, and ace jack offsuit plus. So before I click update, you can probably kind of predict what's going to happen here. It's going to add pocket pairs, sixes and better. It's going to add ace 9 suited and better. It's going to add ace jack suited and better. So you can see that's exactly what happened. So that's something that you can do. You can type in these, you can use the text input to select hands that way. And if you click this question mark, it's going to go over kind of all the rules, like the way to do that. So one last kind of a shortcut is if you click the Option key on a Mac, and I forget what the corresponding key is on Windows. Yeah, I think it's the Alt key maybe. So anyway, you click that key, and you can see that the cursor changed and it's pointing up and to the left. So when I click 5-3 suited, it's going to add all of this. And the same thing about removing it. So like if you want to add all of the pocket pairs, let's say 4s and better, you don't have to click and drag, whatever. What you can do is you can just hover over pocket 4s, click Option, and then do that. And so for the pocket pairs and the like connected hands, like 5-4 off, 5-4 suited, it goes up and to the left. And the same with the gapper hands. But now when you move kind of here, it's just going to go to the left. And when you go here, it's going to go up. So that's kind of another shortcut. Cool, so that was basically all of the shortcut ways of selecting hands. Now I want to talk about what these numbers are. And you can see when you hover over them, it'll tell you. So this is telling you the percent of hands that are in range. And this is telling you how many combos are in range. So let's just say we do something like this. It's telling you, 23.4% of hands are selected, and 310 out of the 1,326 combos are selected. So what do I mean by combos? This is a good segue into watch what happens when we shift click. So if we shift click like A6 suited, it's gonna give you a more kind of fine-grained control. So A6 suited, like there isn't actually two cards that are Ace-6 suited. Like if you're sitting at the casino and someone deals you your hands, you'll have ace of clubs, 6 of clubs, but your cards aren't going to say Ace-6 suited. So what I'm trying to say is that there's 4 combinations of Ace-6 suited. There's Ace-6 of clubs, Ace-6 of spades, of hearts, of diamonds. So like Ace-6 suited isn't actually a starting hand. It's more of a generic description of like a type of starting hand. So the actual starting hands are A6 of clubs, A6 of spades, A6 of hearts, A6 of diamonds. So when I say combinations over here, what I'm saying is that there's 1,326 of these, of actual starting hands, and we call those combos. So 310 of the 1,326 combos are selected, and that corresponds to 23.4%. So that's what these things mean. If you go to something like the hit calculator, actually, let's use the guided analyses. So let's say that we select the top 30% over here, and then we enter a flop. So watch what happens when we enter the flop. So now the 1326 becomes 1176, and that's because of card removal. So the fact that the King of Hearts is one of the flop cards, that means that there aren't as many possible combos of like pocket kings. So if we shift click, there used to be 6 combinations of pocket kings. Now there's only 3. If we go to like king queen suited, let me do that again. So there used to be 4 combinations: clubs, spades, hearts, and diamonds, but now there's only 3. So the fact that the King of Hearts was selected, that removes some possibilities. So that's why the number here dropped down. So now if we go down to like, this is the pre-flop range. If we go down to the flop range, this looks a little bit different now. So it says 342. And you can see that the 342, that's the same as the 342 here. So these are all the hands that you have, entering the flop. And now the 342, that says those are all of the possible hands that you had entering the flop. Like, you didn't have 10-6 offsuit entering the flop. You didn't have 9-7 suited. So there's only 342 possible combos of hands entering the flop. And you can see that these are kind of disabled over here. So I just kind of wanted to go over that to show you that the number isn't always going to be 1326. It kind of depends on the situation. Okay, so now let's kind of go back to the equity calculator. And I want to talk about, let me do this. So just to make it clear, if you shift click, you don't have to click all 4 of them. If you only want to select, let's say the hearts, you can do that. And you can see when you have one combo selected, it's going to have an icon to show you that King 6 of Hearts is selected. But if you have 2, there's not enough room on the square to have like both of the like suits on the square. So I just put a 2 to show you that like 2 combos are selected. And also when you hover over, it gives you kind of the text of what's selected. Okay, so now let's talk about this right here. So it says wait to apply to added hands. So let's set this to like 50, and let's click 9-8 suited and see what that does. So you can see that it's kind of a lighter shade than the other ones, and you can see this bar, it's kind of halfway. So 9-8 suited is selected, but it has a weight of 50. So, if you're not sure whether or not they're opening with 9-8 suited, you can give it a weight. Or if you think maybe there's a 25% chance that they would open 5-4 suited, you can set this and then click there. So this really gives you a lot more of a fine-grained control over your opponent's ranges. It lets you kind of think, not in a black and white sense, like they are doing this, they're not doing that. It lets you think in more of kind of a gray, probabilistic sense. Because a lot of times you're not sure what they're doing. Like maybe there's a 75% chance that they're opening 3s and 2s. So that's how you can use this right here. And if you want even more fine-grained control, you actually can shift click and you can set the weight of each combo. So, it doesn't really make sense in this scenario, but let's just say we think that there's a 20% chance that they would open 9-8 of clubs, but a 70% chance that they open 9-8 of spades. So these sliders right here, it allows us to do that. And that'll make a lot more sense if you're kind of, let's say, in one of the guided analyses and we're on the flop and we think like ace 8 of hearts, that has a flush draw here, so that we're going to set to a maximum weight. But ace 8 of spades, or let's say ace 8 of diamonds with the backdoor draw, we only think that there's like a 30% chance that that combo is in range. So that's what the weight means. And to go back to the equity calculator, cool, so we talked about the weight, we talked about shift clicking, and how you can set the weight for individual combos. Now I think I want to move on to the things in this dropdown. So let's say that we're in a spot, let's just set a flop like this, and let's say that we want to select a lot of flush draw combos. So we could shift click and click the club combo, shift click and do the club, but that's going to take a long time. So what we can do to speed that up is we click this drop down, we go to select specific suits, and the ones that are checked off here, those are the ones that are going to be added when we click something. So if we only want the club combos to be added, we only click this. And now when we click and drag, it's going to only add the club combos. And you can see when we clicked one that's not possible, like ace 7 of clubs is impossible because the 7 of clubs is on the board. It's going to tell us it is impossible to select this hand because of what you have checked off in the select specific suits menu. So it's saying that you can't have ace 7 suited. You can't have ace 7 of clubs. So yeah, this is a kind of a quick way to, select hands of a specific suit. So now let's go back and reset that. And let's talk about another thing. So let's say that we have a range, and we want to set a weight for stuff. So we could kind of like go here and say, you have a weight of 50, you have a weight of 50, you have a weight of 50. But the faster way to do that is to go to set hand weights. And if you want to set a bunch of hands at once to have a weight of 50, you can do this, and you select the hands that you want to have a weight of 50, and then you click this button, and it's going to tell you a weight of 50 has been applied to the hands you've selected, and you can see all of these hands right now they have a weight of 50. So that's kind of a way to set the weight of hands like in bulk. And yeah, that's basically an overview of the hand matrix. I'm pretty sure I included everything. Because we're on the equity calculator, there's kind of an additional thing. So you can click narrow range, and you can click to say, I only want to include the hands that, middle pair or better, that have a flush draw and open-ended straight draw. Only include the hands that meet these criteria. So when you click narrow range, you can see it's going to get rid of a bunch of hands. So that's really only a feature in the equity calculator. It's not a feature in the other tools. So yeah, that's been an overview of this hand matrix, and this is kind of a big kind of core part of the app. So it's important to understand everything that you can do with it. Hopefully this made sense. Let me know what you guys think. My email is azerner3@gmail.com. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that.